you have a federal government in the first place is to provide for the common defense. Everything else is secondary.
You know, Van, the one thing that I was jealous of the most with you was during the South Carolina primary, you were with every single presidential candidate, not only that mattered, but that was out there. And you were basically the, I guess you want to say the welcoming committee for South Carolina. Tell me about that experience and what you take away from that.
Well, my background, 1979, I was 19 years old, but I was on the committee of the Republican Party that created our first Republican presidential primary. So I understand and appreciate the history of the primary there, and we used the primary to build a Republican Party in South Carolina. But with my book, The New Terrorism, How to Fight It and Defeat It, over half the candidates actually got the book. And their staffs read it and looked at it to help prepare themselves on the foreign policy and national security aspects for the debates. So we were very blessed and fortunate to be asked by several of the campaigns to run and would serve as a moderator for their town halls. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, since they got the chance to read the book and since you got an opportunity to meet with all these
available on Amazon.com, everybody.
Excellent plug. Did you? What were your takeaways? What were your impressions? Were there any candidates who you felt really understood what needs to be done to fight the faceless enemy?
Yeah, if I could have blended about 4 or 5 of them and put them together, I think we'd have a great commander-in-chief. But I got to tell you, I had a great town hall with Marco Rubio last summer. Went great, and answered every question. It was like rapid fire. I mean, he was great. And I got to tell you, Ben Carson got a bum rap from a lot of people in national media. Now, bear in mind, I interviewed him after he had just come back from Jordan, dealing with the Syrian refugee crisis and all. And I think he had actually read the book because he was talking about the electromagnetic pulse threat, and I recognized some of the stuff. But brilliant man. And of course we did Donald Trump in Beaufort, South Carolina, the Tuesday before the election. And I got to tell you, with Trump, we talked about the ballistic missile technology of North Korea and how the Iranians have been funding that. And I was impressed.
And that's high praise coming from Van. Mm-hmm. What was your overall impression of Donald Trump? Is he a man unto himself in the campaign? Is he listening to other people around him? Or is he shooting from the hip and just going with it?
Well, we're going to find out. But I do think it was very interesting, and we actually did 2 of his town halls. But he was very gracious. And the one thing about the Trump phenomenon is this, and I studied this. I went and looked at the returns, where he's getting his votes from and all. It's like the old silent majority. President Nixon, before he called them the silent majority, he called them the forgotten Americans. People who pay their taxes, they go to church, they love their country, but feel like their government's let them down. And regardless of who the nominee is, we've got to figure a way how to keep these people in the Republican Party, in the conservative movement. Because, look, people, when we saw what Romney's done today and with Trump and all, the establishment created Trump. And let me tell you what I'm talking about. If we had secured the borders like we were supposed to, and I said this at CPAC today, that the Republican Party and the Democrat Party both have failed the American people in securing the borders of this country. Duncan Hunter, who I supported for president in 2008, authored the Secure Fence Act in 2006. We did not fund it. We did not enforce it. It was the law of the land. If we had done that, our borders would have been secured. Oh, by the way, a portion of that double fence was built along the San Diego-Tijuana border. Guess what? Murder, crime, drugs, illegal aliens, it's all down by in excess of 90%. It works. When you secure the border, it works. So for the people who want to go after Trump, I tell them, hey, you helped create Trump because you didn't enforce the border of this country.
We say that a lot on our show, that Trump is not only the result of an angry America, yep, but he is also the result of an apathetic government that may have the tools to have done the job, but didn't finish the job. And now that Trump's message is getting out there, they're upset that people aren't still buying into the same old government that they've had for years. Yeah. And now it's like they're listening to somebody else's tune, and they're upset about it, and they have to wonder why.
Yeah, and they're fed up with the establishment. And look, right now, this is an opportunity for conservatives and Republicans. In South Carolina, we had 125,000 roughly new people. We went from 600,000 to 725,000. 125 new voters. I talked to one county chairman who told me, she said, and this lady has lived there forever, and she said, we got people, I don't know who these people are. They came out of the woods. We've never seen them before. Don't know who they are. but they're new people. That's a good thing. Democrat primary turnout down 26%. This is a good sign. If we play our cards right, we can win this thing this fall.
Well, Van, do you think that these new voters are just being motivated by the overall tone of the election, or are they coming out because they're being moved by Donald Trump's message?
I think they're being moved by a message, and it could be any message, that stands up to the establishment and is not going from the establishment talking points, even if they disagree with him on things. I talked to a minister the other day. He said, look, I don't like the guy's language and what he does, but I'm not elected a preacher. He said the guy is brutally honest. And that's what this minister told me. So, and people right now, look, the unemployment numbers are a joke. People know everybody's got someone in their family who doesn't have a job right now. They're not even counting them in the unemployment numbers anymore. What Obama has done to this country, I mean, this is, to me, the most important election of our lifetime. And I think people realize that. And they are angry. And you know what? They got a right to be angry at their government.
Absolutely. And we were talking off air, and I want to get this on the record really quick. At heart, everybody at this table is a campaign nerd. Mm-hmm. We all like to talk about, data and crosstabs and top lines and all that fun stuff, right? And you hit on a big point about how you have 120,000+ new voters in the South Carolina primary and how to capture them back. Are the Republicans equipped right now, regardless of who the nominee is, are they equipped right now to capture those people's information, keep them active, and maybe do sort of a peer-to-peer contact the way that the Obama administration developed in their retail politicking?
I wrote a piece for Fox News recently, and we looked at this. I actually interviewed and talked to a number of the presidential campaigns, and they each said they don't trust the Republican National Committee to have the technology they need. They're going out on their own. Look, in 2012, there were 90 million people who did not vote. Romney won the independents. McCain lost the independents, but they both got about the same number of votes. And what that tells us, we didn't turn out our base. Our technology, our get-out-the-vote technology was a joke. It didn't even work. And I tried to bring this to attention to people at the RNC, myself in 2012, after I talked to some experts and realized the problem, and was told we got I got the usual, we've got everything under control, don't need your help answer. And, of course, the thing didn't even work. Romney's people didn't even test the system until the day of the election. We had no get-out-the-vote technology. And I think that was worth a couple points in the election, no question.
Yeah, lawn signs do not vote anymore. I think that's the safe way to say it, right, Amanda?
Yeah, the campaigns have now advanced to levels of sophistication that are well beyond a lawn sign.
I mean, that's a great point. So many of these campaigns today have consultants who are stuck in the 80s, and how we win an election today is much different than how we won it then. And that might be why, I think Ted Cruz has done well with data analytics and all, and some of these candidates who understand the way we campaign, the way you get your message out. It's different than flyers in the mail and stuff like that, and I mean it's changed.
I learned this from Ned Ryan, and he was in your reference in your article.
Yes, he's the best on the right. He's the closest thing we got with him and his technology to go toe to toe with the Democrats.
The new campaign model is a customer service model, not the old retail politicking of 72-hour get-out-the-vote effort. It is a retail model. It's peer-to-peer contact, and your get-out-the-vote effort starts 2 weeks before, not 72 hours before.
That's exactly right.
Well, Gene, consider 2008, the Democrats developed the minivan system where you would get updated information and analytics about individual voters real time. You send a campaign volunteer to a door with an iPad, and they have fresh questions different for every person on the block. Meanwhile, you have the Republican campaigns that are still going off of 4 of 4, 2 of 4 double prime voters. It's antiquated. And
Hillary is going to take the Obama model, and she's going to run with it. That's what people don't understand. He's plowed the road, so to speak.
And you're right about Ned Ryan. What his system does, as I understand it, it connects the iPhone to those mobile platforms, much like the Democrats. Since my article came out, I got to tell you this: we have gotten calls. I've gotten emails from people of former retired government officials who dealt with data analytics for the government, who don't want anything. They cannot get their phone calls returned from the Republican National Committee. RNC refuses to meet with them the whole bit. That is absolutely ridiculous.
The man knows everything, doesn't he? From foreign policy to national security to talking nerdy to me. everything I wanted from an interview and more from Van Hipp.
Gene, I'm a Renaissance man.
More so than anyone we've ever had. American Defense International, Fox News contributor.
Mr. Do-It-All.
You guys see the photos of him fishing and hunting with his kids on the Facebooks and all that stuff. Van, my guy, it's always a pleasure to see you, man. Thank God for everything you're doing, and we're going to talk a lot more, obviously, down the road.
I appreciate what y'all are doing. You're spreading the word, getting the message out. Thanks to both of you for what you do.
Well, you're part of our growth, man. Thank you so much.
Hello and welcome. My name's Andre Walker, and your weekly monologue starts right now. Barack Obama is once again doing what he does best, damaging America on the world stage with his latest intervention in British politics. Just days after he attacked the UK for bombing the murderous dictator Colonel Gaddafi, he's announced he plans to travel to Britain to campaign for the UK to stay in the European Union. The referendum is on June 23rd, so that means Uncle Barry is planning to come over whilst he's still the American president, on the US taxpayers' expense, to try and persuade America's closest ally to be taken over by people who don't like America. Not only that, but he had a go at the Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, when Boris dared to suggest it was not the place of the US president to come over and campaign in a foreign referendum. Remember, after the Queen was exposed as wanting to leave the EU, she said that she'd stay out of the referendum. So why is it that the US head of state is campaigning when the British head of state is not? Guys, I'm confused. Didn't you fight a war to avoid being involved in British affairs? Why is it that Obama is always on the side of the people who loathe America? It's almost as if Liberal Democrats hate the USA and want to be more like the Soviet Union. Well, we know Bernie Sanders wants that anyway. In fact, the only good thing about Bernie Sanders is that he's not sleeping with Bill Clinton. Or rather, we assume he isn't sleeping with Bill Clinton. This week, the former Top Gear presenter and abuser of BBC staff, Jeremy Clarkson, came out as a supporter of Britain staying in the EU. He wants a United States of Europe. That is, quote, liberal and kind, unquote, and even has its own army. Now, if Americans think they're in trouble, at least no one is proposing to entrust your national defence to Belgium. Let's just remind ourselves that Belgium is a country that's only famous for one thing, inventing French fries. But the country is so pointless and forgettable that nobody noticed, hence the name French fries. Americans just saw that their women had hairy armpits and their men had excessive body odour, and they all said ooh la la quite often, so assumed they were French. But to be fair to the Belgians, when hamburgers were first introduced, they got their own back because they believed they should be eaten raw. To this day, steak tartare is called an Americana in Brussels. I suppose that does get you back for the French fry snob. But if you think that Washington's a bit of a joke, imagine being governed from the place that thinks overweight Americans got that way because of their love of raw beef mixed with raw eggs. If that was your national dish, I'm pretty certain there would be no obesity crisis at all, because no one likes it. And completely raw beef is even more likely to make you sick than eating an E. coli-ridden burrito from Chipotle. Is it even possible it would be more dangerous than that? Yup, guys, Chipotle is a pretty toxic environment right now, just not quite as toxic as the Breitbart newsroom. That was a monologue. Just time to announce the results of last week's quiz. We asked, how many lefties does it take to stop a Trump rally? Simon from Hollywood correctly answered, we don't know because no one had the necessary botulism injections to safely approach the biohazard that is the lefty protesters. Whiff whiff. Simon, your Tom Cruise closet maximizer is in the post right now. Until next week, guys, goodbye.
Check out Andre's column at townhall.com. Check it out on Twitter at AndreJPWalker. And read Andre's work here, Behind Enemy Lines. Now back to the show.
Gene and Russ, back behind enemy lines. I want to thank Van Hipp for coming on the show with us, Fox News contributor and a great friend, resetting the record for most guest visits by a single guest on Behind Enemy Lines Radio. The man is awesome, Russ.
I love him. Great guy.
So